one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay. Roll call, please, Stacia.
Steve Jarvis,
Here.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
Jim Peterson,
Yep.
John Johnson.
Okay, we have all in attendance. Moving on in our agenda, are there any conflict of interest that are noted with anything on the agenda that we've got to discuss tonight?
I will disclose that I did get a letter for the 207 Pine Avenue for the conditional use application.
So you received a letter, but, okay, so you yourself, though, other than receiving the letter, have no conflict
No.
with, okay.
I just want to disclose that.
Okay, and I think at the time that we discussed that, it would be appropriate for you to read that letter, if you should so choose.
I didn't bring it. It's just a regular letter that was sent out by Danny.
Okay.
150 feet radius.
Okay. Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, moving on to the consent calendar, approval of 5/11/2020 agenda, approval of 4/27/2020 minutes, and approval of claims. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Alderman Johnson, to approve the agenda minutes and claims. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Jarvis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson,
Yep.
Steve Jarvis,
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
All in favor, motion carries. I'd like to move on to the public comment. So members of the public may speak on any matter not on the agenda. We'd ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes per speaker. If you'd like to speak, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Okay, there's podium.
That podium.
Well, that's one of these. My name is Michelle Olson. I'm from Bumpin' Buffalo Bar and Grill. I just want to comment on the sidewalk project. It's great. I love it. It's wonderful. But we do have some issues that I've noticed with kids, children, skateboarders. I just want you to be aware of it. So I don't know if you're going to put up a sign or anything that says no playing, no bikes, no skateboards. I just don't want to be held liable if something happens to somebody up front.
Okay.
So that's my
Right.
comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll go ahead then and close public comments. Before we get into the action items, I would like to move 2 of our discussion items up now, as we have some visitors that have attended via phone and also in the audience. I would like to make the best use of their time, so we'll discuss these before we get into action items. I'd like to start with discussion item 8A, Pennington County Sheriff's Report. Randy, if you could go ahead and give us what you have.
Yeah, so if you look at the report, a pretty uneventful month. We did have a lot of hours. The result of that was obviously there being no school. So we've moved Deputy Isaacson into a patrol spot. So we actually have 4 deputies right now, and that'll happen until June. So that's the influx of hours there, if you can see. Then we had to move Deputy Southern into Hill City a little sooner than we wanted because Deputy Cundy had some personal issues, and we had to move him back to Rapid. So I don't know if you guys have met him yet. If not, once we convene back, I will bring him in and introduce him to everybody.
Okay.
So he's there now. He's filling Deputy Cundy's schedule. What we'd like to do too is when Deputy Andrews retires in June, Deputy Southern will take Deputy Andrews' spot, his schedule. And we have another deputy, Deputy Riley, that would then fill Deputy Southern's spot that he's currently working. So I want to know if there's any questions. I know it's not ideal. It's unfortunate. We can't account for retirements, but the personal issues that kind of was sprung up on us like all of a sudden, and we just had to deal with it.
Okay. Counsel?
But with Deputy Riley coming, he does live in town, so that would really, we'd only have one deputy living in or close to town, that'd be Deputy Isaacson. Everybody else is out of town. So if there's questions or concerns, please ask, and I'll try to do my best to answer.
I don't have any.
No. Nothing?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant Harkins. We appreciate everything that you do for us.
Okay, everybody, thanks and be safe.
Thanks. Okay,
Okay,
and
bye-bye.
bye-bye. And then the second item that I'd like to move up from a discussion item perspective is with regard to Monument Health and COVID-19. We have Dr. Lisa Brown that's on the phone, and in attendance here at the meeting, we have Dr. Graber and Zach Peterson. So I'd like to welcome all of you, and I'm not sure if you wanted to share information or how you wanted to do this, so I guess I'll just turn it over to you guys.
All right, I'll address from the podium. So I'm Terry Graber, family practice doctor. I think we feel sort of compelled to bring up the following points in regard to what the city or business owners or politicians might promote with regard to the COVID-19. And so the first point is that while we haven't had much COVID-19 in this area, the challenge is that you can't know if you've got it right away. There's going to always be a 2-week delay, roughly 2-week delay, after an infection occurs before you can really be confident if that infection is going to be spread to other people in the community. So with travelers coming in and out, there's going to be a lag in time before you can tell if there's any serious threat to this community. So while right now it seems like there's low prevalence and no particular threat, a traveler could come, bring the disease into the community. It could be here spreading for a week or two before we have any idea about it. That's just the science of the disease. I can't do anything about that. The second thing I think that we would have to say, so the point there being, any decisions you make can't really be made based on conditions as they appear right now. They need to be made on the possibility of what conditions might obtain in the future. The second point I guess we'd like to make is that the spread occurs through largely two kinds of things. One would be respiratory, so people being close enough to each other to breathe on each other, cough on each other, that kind of thing. You've heard about the 6-foot spacing. I'm obviously wearing a mask. We feel like these are reasonable steps to take to try to prevent respiratory spread. You have to apply these steps before you know that the disease is present, otherwise it's too late. So doing this is a lot of restriction and a lot of presence of material, masks and things like that, lots of physical distancing, but you have to do that to prevent the respiratory spread. The other big issue is contact spread. Surfaces get contaminated. People cough on their hands, they touch stuff. Somebody else touches the stuff. They rub their face. That's how it spreads. That's why hand washing is so important. That's why contact sterilization or sanitation is so important. So I think we would urge distancing, we would urge respiratory protection, and we'd urge contact cleaning and hand washing. That's I think the big points that we feel like we need to make from a medical perspective. As far as decisions one makes about how risky it is, how much spread is enough, is too much. These are decisions that are not strictly speaking medical. We put up with lots of infectious diseases. We send kids to school in the winter and we know that there's flus and things like that. But this illness has proven to be more fatal than some of the respiratory infections that we otherwise deal with. So there is a greater degree of risk. So those are the points that I feel like I need to make as a practitioner working in this town and as a representative of the healthcare community. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Graber, I do have a few questions.
Sure.
As far as treatment, so someone who might feel like they have COVID, you have Monument Health has a process that's set up.
Right.
How does that work? How are they triaged? Will we see those patients necessarily coming to your facility, or how does that work?
So we've tried to keep the Hill City Clinic a clean facility. So we're asking people who have fevers, who have bad, let's say, respiratory infections. We see people with some respiratory symptoms that we don't think are likely to be COVID related, but if we have a suspicion it might be, we're asking them not to come to the facility in Hill City. So if somebody were to walk in as a visitor to this town and say, hey, I've got a fever and a cough this morning, can I come be seen by the doctor? We would actually turn them away from the Hill City Clinic. We would direct them one of two ways. One is that Custer Hospital has both a clean and a respiratory clinic set up. So you can go there and you can be directed to a respiratory evaluation place where they can do COVID-19 testing. Also, the Monument Urgent Care Clinic on Jackson Boulevard is set up as a respiratory clinic. So that would be the other local resource. If people are sick enough to need the emergency room, then either Custer or Rapid City Hospital have care at the emergency rooms.
Okay, perfect. And you've been here and around here long enough, so you understand what starts to happen in our town. And although we may see a decrease in the numbers, I am certainly expecting that we do see visitors in the area. And of course, as we've all experienced in the past, there's certain timeframes during that, specifically the Sturgis Rally,
Right.
where we do kind of see almost a need, or we've heard that there is issues with medical assistance and the equipment that we have and things like that. So in light of the fact that we typically have that gap anyway, and now we've got the COVID coming in behind that, has there been any thought to how that is going to be handled from the PPE side or
Sure.
the staffing side?
So Monument Health has a contingency plan which is probably 7 tiers deep of where patients can be sent for varying levels of care, inpatient care, outpatient care. That would involve opening up more space in the Rapid City Hospital, opening up more space potentially in the Custer Hospital, potentially using some other resources that are not hospitals, bed space that might be available, for example, in the nursing home, or creating bed space in facilities like the National Guard camp and unfinished space at the Rapid City Hospital. So just depending on volume and numbers, cases, there's a contingency plan, and patients would be moved to these various areas depending on the degree of their illness. So Custer Hospital plays a small role in that. It's a fairly small facility, but does have a role in that kind of plan. Much of it would be coordinated through the facilities in Rapid City.
Okay. And there's a comfort level that we'll be able to address both
Right.
of the situations.
The gaps that still exist probably have more than anything to do with the ability to do immediate testing. The testing equipment is available, but the actual ability to obtain reagents and test absolutely everybody who might show up right away to know right now, that's still somewhat limited. So they're guarding the supply of that and continuing to work to try to make more and more available. One of the big advantages of delaying the fact that we haven't had much spread in this area is that there has been time to collect some resources together.
Okay, perfect.
Terry, can I jump in on that
Yeah,
briefly?
please.
Terry, can you
Yes,
hear me?
yeah,
okay?
go-
Yep,
go
he
ahead.
said, okay, it's kind of far away.
So, yeah, it's kind of sort of cutting out sometimes. Specifically, there's in-house testing in Rapid City when somebody is admitted to the hospital and to exposed healthcare workers. And the other tests for those who might be exposed and are just coming in for testing from home and then quarantining back home, that's still going to Mayo. And there's a 3 to 5 day turnaround on that. And so there's still kind of a prioritization for the local get it within a few hours test.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Brown. So I know that we have Dr. Brown on the phone and Dr. Graber and Zach. I appreciate you folks coming in to talk to the residents today. I know that our county and really this side of the river has been a little bit in limbo. You know, we're not seeing things and things aren't like they are in other parts of the country. It's kind of hard to imagine. What I do want to let you know, though, is that as an official of the city and having responsibility for the residents, I would like to thank you for the interaction that you started to show with us. I know Dr. Brown had scheduled a teleconference a couple of weeks ago, and then on the heels of that, now we have a regular weekly conference, so we have the ability to talk to you and make it feels more like it's a localized effort. You know, we continually hear things about things that are happening hundreds of miles away from here, and it's kind of hard to visualize that when we're in the situation that we're in. So this just kind of brings it home a little bit more for us, and it makes at least me feel a little bit more secure, which then I hope to convey to the rest of our population. We appreciate all the work that you're doing. You know, it's a long haul. It's something that we don't have a playbook for, and something that I know that we'll need to adjust to. So all of the work that you do, we really appreciate you reaching out. Some of the things that I've seen in the past, and if I listen to kind of where you're going, we're talking a little bit about things we can do to reduce spread. So, you know, the washing of the hands, the masking, what can we do to avoid that? And in a recent conversation that we had, I don't have the exhibits, but we were provided with information where if we can get people to comply with that, it actually brings any type of curve needed for hospital beds or for other type of PPE equipment down to almost no curve, with tourists factored into that, so I was quite surprised. And I'm hoping that that information is made readily available and, you know, we can see it, because it was pretty impressive that steps like that can be measured. The other thing too that I haven't heard a lot of press on is, you know, I've started to see the commercials of, well, now that you're a couch potato, and everyone knows that that's not a healthy lifestyle. I haven't heard a lot of, you know, keep yourself healthy, because if you get healthy enough, you might be able to resist it. So I think, you know, there's hopefully some benefit in people still continuing to keep themselves healthy. Go for your regular doctor's checkups. Do what you need to do in order to keep yourself strong. So the potential to maybe even fight it off is there. I mean, again, we don't know much about this and how it reacts, but I still think that's beneficial.
Well, we're fortunate to have the ability to do outdoor exercise around here with low volumes of crowds around us, so that gives us at least that opportunity. I think the real challenge for communities and for the population in general is going to be what's an acceptable level of spread of the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And the assumption has been, on the most part in the medical community, that people are going to gradually get this disease, that a fairly high proportion of people will eventually get it. But if that can be spread out, then it consumes resources at a usable rate, and perhaps allows what we call herd immunity to develop, where if enough people begin to get immunity, then it doesn't spread as fast. So the challenge is you have to do your preventive techniques before you know you need them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real challenge to a community, is how much of that do you legislate or put in place when it doesn't yet appear to be absolutely necessary. By the time it appears to be necessary, though, it may be too late to catch up with the curve. That's the dilemma.
Okay, perfect. Dr. Brown?
Terry, this is Lisa, and I want to reiterate and reinforce what Dr. Graber is saying there, that, you know, by the time we know we're in trouble, we're 2 weeks behind. And even though you referenced having seen curves that look a lot flatter, I just want to point out that the estimates given the social distancing with tourism volumes involved, those curves still look like, even if we do good social distancing, that we may outcapacity our vent and bed availability. And so even though the curves look much better than they do without doing anything, we still are going to be tremendously stretched when we do get the bulge. And I don't think there's any way to think that we're not going to see that. Everybody's been doing a fabulous job, but because once it starts in an area and it starts increasing and then it kind of blows up, and I don't think that we're unique in any way, that we won't see a similar thing to what's happened other places. So I want to make sure we're being ultra cautious about our reopening plans and what that means for cleaning surfaces and masking and maintaining distance. I just can't reiterate that enough, because even if we do a good job of that, when we do get our rise, it's still going to be pretty strong.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brown.
And I would also say, Mayor, that you sent around a packet of information, and it looked like that had good, appropriate contingency plans in it. So I think there was nothing in there that I felt was failing to try to take reasonable precautions. That was good.
We basically relied on what was available from the CDC, the Department of Health, any reliable resource that was printing information or giving information that might be helpful for the businesses. And some of them were very tailored to their type of business as well. So, you know, at least that way we made, from a due diligence perspective, we at least made an attempt to reach out. We even sent some signs that they could put up in their businesses as well, so, yeah. So, I've asked the majority. Does anyone else have any other questions? Anyone in the audience? Okay, well,
Thanks
Zach,
for
is there
sharing.
anything you wanted to?
No, I think Dr. Graber and Dr. Brown had it covered, so.
Well, I do know that your time is precious, especially in light of situations like we have and what's going on. I want to thank you for giving our community a little bit of that time today at the meeting to provide some additional explanation. Again, I think, you know, it's kind of this big thing that's out there and not everybody knows a lot. It's very helpful to have those people who know the most about it address us. So we are very grateful for your time, and we're very grateful for everything that you do to keep our community safe.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Call anytime.
Thank
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
And
Dr. Brown.
I would say, Kathy, I would be remiss if I didn't make some sort of statement that we are definitely here as a resource. We're your community physicians, and we want to be that resource for you. We're not here to tell you what to do with your businesses. We just want to be that resource for you. We're not here to critique or give directions specifically, but want to offer you information.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. It was very nice to get the reach out from you to say, hey, you know, we're here to help. What can we do? So that was really a nice way, and I think it's going to forge a nice relationship as we move forward.
Excellent.
So
All
thank
right,
you,
have a good
everybody.
evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening. Okay, Gray, I hope you got all that. Okay, let's go ahead then and move on into action items. Action item 7A, approval of conditional use permit, nightly rental, 207 Pine Avenue, number C2020-04, Greg Geiger and Susan Sherbeck. Danny will address this.
Okay, this conditional use application is for utilizing the main house at 207 Pine for a vacation nightly rental. There's a small apartment guest house on the property that the owner, Susan Shearbeck, will live in. Main house has 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, was built around 1910. Additions were added in 2002. There's no garage. There are several current vacation nightly rentals on Pine Avenue, 117 Pine Avenue and 109 Pine Avenue. Both of those are zoned C3. Both have at least 2 off-street parking spots. 415 Pine Avenue is an R2 with a conditional use permit, has a garage and 2 off-street parking spots. 329 Pine Avenue is an R4 with a use on review and 2 off-street parking spots. And then directly across the street is Forest Recreation Management Units, which are zoned C1. They're used for short-term living quarters and have plenty of space for off-street parking. The owner has been parking on Pine Avenue for a number of years. It appears that a small vehicle or 2 motorcycles would be able to park right up to the stone stairway, this section in here. Otherwise, there's no areas for off-street parking on that property. Proposed land use does not conflict with the intent or goals of Hill City's comprehensive plan. The proposed conditional use permit does not meet the standards as set forth in Title IX due to property not having 2 off-street parking spots. There's no flood hazard area on the property. Of the 9 conditional use permit review criteria, the application meets most of the criteria except for 7. The request will not create undue traffic congestion. This criteria could be met with vehicle restrictions on the vacation renters. For example, only being able to bring 1 vehicle or 2 motorcycles, no RVs, no trailers. Pine Avenue already has an issue with on-street parking during the summer months. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the conditional use permit application and required the owner to provide 2 off-street parking spaces for this use, as only 1 is currently available. If obtained, the P&Z Commission recommended their approval in a 4 yes, 1 no vote. The property owner has provided a notarized signed letter from the neighbor at 215 Pine Avenue, which would be this property right here. And the owner has given Shearbeck the authority to use 1 spot, 1 off-street parking spot right there. And that's only as long as Shearbeck owns that property and the neighbor owns her property. So as soon as one of those would sell, that agreement goes away. Let's see, I have comments from neighbors from the 150-foot notification that was sent out. This is from 149 Pine. I'm opposed of this because of the parking. It's already bad. I think there's too many in town already. Thank you. From the resident at 107 Elm, which is the corner. I'm opposed due to parking issues. They were very bad already. Don't want it to be worse. Thank you. And then we received a letter this evening. In reference to proposed vacation rental on Pine Avenue, we have concerns about the parking. At this time, you may find yourself struggling through a maze of vehicles parked on this street. If the proposed rental had sufficient parking for their guests, it would solve their problem. We would hope we could work at solving the parking issue in this area rather than just adding to it. Children are hard to see amongst these incorrectly parked vehicles, and in an emergency situation, it could make a big difference in time. We would also like to take this opportunity to express to the council to consider the detriment to our city all these vacation rentals are creating. Using all of this housing a few months out of the year is subtracting from the growth of our year-round family community. Thank you for your time. And this is 241 Pine Avenue address. If you'd like to turn this over to public comment?
So at this point, council, I'm gonna open it up for public comment on the floor, and then anyone on the phone after that, and then we'll proceed with your discussion. So is there anyone that's in attendance right here today that would like to discuss this? Again, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Doug Olson, occupancy of the 240 Pine. And I'd just like to say that I'm totally against vacation home down there, because what happens, starting at the top of Deerfield Road, it's like a funnel. You go down that funnel, and when you get to that property that is in question, there's no room to get through there. I've personally witnessed many people smash their mirrors together on that piece of property. And along with the kids that are right there from that rental property next to the Forest Rec, you have kids running around in there, and there's absolutely no space. And as far as they say, you know, 1 or 2 vehicles, you know what? That never happens, because they come in with campers, they come in with ATV trailers, and there's so many people in there that you can't get through there. There's times that we have to wait for cars to come down from the church to get by that goofy intersection. Whoever designed that intersection down there ought to have been fired, because that's like a roundabout. That is a mess. And that's what I have to say about that project.
Thank you, Mr.
I think it
Olson.
should be totally denied.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Would anyone else like to comment on this?
Can we get that picture back up there, please? Karen Modlin from 248 Oak Street. Well, we own the property 301, which is next to this property. Just curiosity, isn't this a right-of-way? And how can somebody legally say that, yeah, I'm gonna give you one spot of a city right-of-way as a parking spot? Just out of curiosity.
Is it? Is it right away?
It's behind the curb and gutter.
Well, yeah, but is it still
I'm
right
sure the
away or
city
not?
could take
Huh?
that, I'm
Pull-
sure
pull
the
up.
city could take that as part of the right of way, and it may in actuality be part of the right of way, but it's behind the curb and gutter, and you have structures as well as stone walls that were built in that area, and the city has not stooped in the or said anything in the last X number of years since Pine Avenue was renovated. So, is it technically the right of way? Maybe.
It is.
Has
I
the
think Brett
residents
has-
been using that as their personal property?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
so,
Brett has,
if you look at, and this is a bad picture, and I can try to blow it up here a little bit, but, I know this is a little bit further down.
sorry, all right.
This is a little bit further down from the subject area, but shows kind of the transition. So you've got the right-of-way, which is this straight line here, and the right-of-way here. That's essentially the right-of-way is just the city-owned property. That's all right-of-way means. And so you've got straight corridor there that exists. Within the right-of-way, what happened when the road got designed, and I think Alderman Johnson might know better than I do, because this was designed back in like 2005, I think, or 6. So the road goes up, and then you can see it kind of shift off to the side. So it's still shifting within the right-of-way. And so in this section, you'll have a little bit more green space on this side of the street for people in their front yards and their own personal driveways. And then as it shifts over to this side, that transition goes onto the other side with the green space and the extra space in their driveways. And so that whole design was put through there on Pine. It was my understanding to do some traffic calming to keep speeds reduced so people weren't driving super fast through there. And so if you look at right here, if you look right here, you can see that additional green space. And I believe this is Georgiana Neff's house on the corner. She's got a lot of extra green space because the road is shifted over there. But when you transition down to this, you can see how it jigs to the east. That extra green space is over here. So there's a lot of people that gain or lose capacity on their driveways depending on where the road falls within rights of way. So
Brett, may I show you a picture that'll show you exactly what you're talking about there?
Sure.
Hold your breath. Cover your mouth.
Just to give you an idea of what Brett's speaking to here. Yeah, Dave. From the corner there at Oak and Pine, or at Pine and Elm, that's the front of our property. And that retaining wall is the property line. Everything from there out to the street is what I assume you're referring to as right away. Johnny's familiar with that area.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, very seldom is the road the same width
So
as the right of
technically, it
way.
isn't up to that individual to say he can park here or not, if it's city
And that
property.
continues all the way down that road.
Yeah, I mean, what we consider to be on and off-street parking is essentially you're parking on the street or you're parking on the other side of the curb and gutter. We've never really debated who owns it.
Well, somebody owns it.
Right, but we've never had the conversation go to that extent. Usually when we're referring to on-street parking, it's on the street, you're parking on the pavement, so like this car is on-street. When we're parking off-street, we're talking about on the other side of the curb and gutter here. So I would say technically in this space, it probably is right-of-way, probably is city right-of-way.
So how can
But the way that
somebody
it's
give it away?
delineated with the street, it's giving the impression that it is private property. And so,
Well, that's any boulevard. I mean, any boulevard, it's still right away. Any way you slice this, it's still right away. And a document from anybody would not be able to be, is not even remotely legal. So the fact that there's parking spots there, there's parking spots there. But none of the private owners own them. So they can't give them away to anybody.
right,
And to do that specifically with a notarized document is worthless in my opinion. You would do something like that with an easement so that people would understand that they are encumbering their land because they want to be helpful to their neighbor. Perfectly fine with that. But to do it with a notarized document is worthless to this community.
yeah. So in this instance on the corner here, this driveway, I know up until about this point right here is all city right-of-way. I know that for a fact. But the property owner gets the benefit of using this space for their own private
And the benefit of
utilization, you know.
taking care of it as well.
Yeah, whereas the people on the other side, their right-of-way is very small, that green space is very small in comparison. So it just depends on where you're at on the block.
There's about
Victoria.
15 feet from the property line to the inside of that curb.
Mhm.
Before I get you up there, Mr. Olson's been waiting to talk.
One last thing I'd like to say is my wife and I purchased that property at 240 Pine Street for two different reasons. And the one reason I want to bring up tonight is the reason that we didn't inconvenience our neighbors with our employees parking in front of their houses. And we spent a lot of money to do that. We figured we took, and I know one time they said something about each parking spot in Hill City was worth probably $30,000 to $40,000 per year for the money that they spend in our town. You take that times 12 to 15 cars, and we went a long ways, above and beyond what we would have had to do to put that lot in, to put our employees parking in that lot.
Thank you. We've got one more person in the audience that would like to speak, and then I'll go ahead and open it to the phone, so.
Can you, Vic Alexander, can you run that down? I just wanted to clarify, run your thing down to 107, 109 and 117. Just to make a point, because
You want
I
it
know that
done?
it mentions, you mentioned in the
Had
write-up
plenty
that
of
there is plenty, at least two, and it said at least two. But I have 9 and they are all off-street.
You're wanting me to go where?
Down the
This
street,
property.
down a block and a half, there you go.
Yeah, you've got plenty of parking for yours.
And I just wanted to point that out, that parking along the side there, that is, right there, that is all off the right-of-way. The right-of-way is the back edge of the curb right there. So those 4 down below and 4 up above and 1 in the middle, those 8 or 9 places are all off-street. Just for future clarification.
Okay, we've got a
I
couple
mean, it
more
kinda
comments.
goes along to Doug's comment that we did that so we didn't inconvenience ourselves.
I saw Mr. Modlin's hand go up first, and then Lorraine, I'll take you after that.
Thank you. Evening, folks. Dave Modlin. As Karen said, we do have a property there at the corner of Pine and Elm. I want to follow on to Doug's comment there. This parking and traffic mess that we have is not just in the summer. It's all year long. It's every school day. And I understand, I think, what Susan and Danny were trying to come around to was one parking spot, one kind of mini parking spot there at Susan's, that one, and then using one of Lynn's, Miss Lynn's. I get that, but I don't think you can count on vacation renters being limited to only bringing one car to the Black Hills. That's just not, it works on paper, but I just don't think it's realistic. We've got a vacation rental, this will be our 13th year. Rarely do we get only one car come out there. Mostly you're gonna get grandma and grandpa, mom and dad and some kids, and they're gonna meet here. So you're gonna get, if not just one big SUV, you're gonna get multiple vehicles. And so if that happens, and you got the little red one right here, and you got the vacation renter over here, generally that property also has 3 vehicles out in front of it in addition to using its driveway. So then that other one's gonna park somewhere else. So we're not gaining anything. Let's see. I also want to mention there are 2 dwellings at that property. As you probably know, it's currently listed for sale. And right on the sale listing, it says 2 homes. Live in one, rent the other. So I think we shouldn't only be talking about 2 parking spaces. I think we need to be talking about 4. And, you know, everybody else on Pine has off-street parking. Everybody else on Pine conforms to the ordinances. And I don't mean to put a hurt on Susan, I really don't. But this problem has to end. We have to do something proactive to deal with this parking and traffic congestion issue that we've got. We were talking about the street project back in, it was 2004, because that's the year our house got flooded twice from the street project. I know this. But going on from that, the other thing we were told is that that intersection, part of this grand design thing that came down our way, was that one side of the street or the other would be no parking in order to maintain true 2-way traffic flow through that intersection. Somewhere that slipped through the cracks over the years, we don't have that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I had Ms. Freeze?
Lorena Freeze, 174 Sluice Run Court. I own a vacation rental, and I'm a friend of Susan's, and I know that a vacation rental is very good for the financial side of things. And I'm sure that that's why Susan is doing this. That's why Rick and I did it. My concern with it is that the state of South Dakota, when they came to inspect me for being a vacation rental, required me to have 1 parking spot off-street per bedroom. And if I didn't have that, if I couldn't prove to them that I had that, they weren't going to issue me a license. And so if Susan can't prove that to the state and get a state license, I don't know that in town we want unlicensed vacation rentals.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone on the phone that would like to comment or has something to say? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it for public comment then, and council. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes. Alderman Minor, is that you?
Yes,
Okay, you have the floor.
thank you. I have the same concerns. I don't know how a private property owner can grant a parking space on city right-of-way. I agree with Alderman Peterson. According to the county's GIS system, Pine Avenue in that area is 65 feet wide, the right of way. And I went out and measured the pavement. It's 28 feet curb to curb. So there's 37 feet of right of way on one side or the other, or a combination that the city owns. I took a picture, and I think Finance Officer Townsend put it up.
I think we have it up
It shows the property at 215. The south side of their property, there's a fire hydrant that's 18 feet off the curb. I don't believe the city would have installed the fire hydrant on private property. So I believe that unless there was a terrible error, that hydrant is on city right of way.
Okay.
And so if you follow the line down the street, the supposed parking spot in front of 207 Pine is essentially all city property, as well as the spaces in front of 215. If you go to Chapter 9 in our municipal code, there is no definition of on or off street. There is a definition of street. It says any thoroughfare or public way not less than 16 feet in width, which has been dedicated. So I'm assuming you could make the argument if you're off the street, which is the dedicated thoroughfare, that you would have to be off city property. While I don't represent Ward 1, I'm represent Ward 2. I have had more calls and complaints about traffic and parking on Pine Avenue than any other street in the city. Multiple residents have expressed concerns to me, as you've heard tonight, that essentially it's a one-way street when they park on both sides. It's very dangerous. I know from experience that it's very difficult to get a snowplow down through there, even when there's parking on both sides of the street. I believe that what planning and zoning did is wrong. It does not meet the requirements. And so I would respectfully say that permits should be denied.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Minor. Any discussion with those here in attendance?
So how does somebody get in and out of those parking places if somebody is parked on the street?
It wouldn't.
So the two parking places would be worthless. True?
True. Well, I think there's
True.
I think there's a big void here when this went through planning and zoning, because not only was it brought up about most of this parking is all on street. It's all not on street, but in the right of way. But they didn't take into consideration the other building being rented out, and they got a park. You got Lynn next door. She's got 2 spots in front of her deal, and I think she's got a studio back there, at least in years past, that was always rented out. So there's likely multiple vehicles that are needed just for that property. So giving up, and then of course what we've already said, that you can't give away something you don't own.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, hearing no additional discussion, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I make a motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
So what's the motion that you're making, Alderman Johnson? Could you please clarify
Well, it's
that?
gotta be affirmative, it's,
Motion, we approve it.
Yep,
Okay.
I knew that, I guess.
All right, and then, so we have a motion and a second, and additional discussion.
Nope.
No additional discussion. So, Bill, I hope you can hear. So for clarification, there's a motion to approve on the table and a second. And now we're gonna go ahead with no additional discussion and do a roll call vote. Roll call vote, Stacia, please.
John Johnson,
No.
Steve Jarvis.
No.
Jim Peterson,
No.
Bill Miner,
No.
Motion failed. Action item 7B, approval resolution 2020-08 final plat P 2020-03,
See you
lot
guys.
1 and 2, block 1, Bull Run subdivision 2. Ms. Shea.
This preliminary plat is for the northern portion of this 3.01 acre lot. The proposed new legal description will be lots 1 and 2 of block 1 of Bull Run subdivision 2. Currently, the lot is vacant with a new Bull Run subdivision plan for the north, an established subdivision to the east, vacant land to the west, and the southern lot line abuts Smoky Drive. The lot is included in the TIF district. The lot zoned R4, which requires on lots over 10,000 square feet to have a 75-foot minimum lot width and 100-foot minimum lot depth, 25 feet front and rear yard setbacks, and 5-foot side yard setbacks. Both lots appear to meet the minimum requirements. All newly created lots will have access from Top of Hill Avenue. Lot 1 and Lot 2 appear to have approximately 110 to 120 feet of flat area bordering Top of Hill in which to build a structure. The rear sections of each lot drops off in elevation approximately 30 to 40 feet. Each lot appears to have a building envelope that would not require variances for the 25-foot front setbacks that are required for the zoning district. Proposed land use does not conflict with the intent or goals of Hill City's comprehensive plan. The proposed preliminary plat does meet the standards as set forth in Title IX. There is flood hazard area on the property, but it's a small section, well, it's a section down at the bottom, abutting Smoky Drive, but not on this plat. Plat has been reviewed by Planning and Zoning on April 6th, April 20th, and May 4th. Plat was reviewed by the city engineer, city administrator, public works director, Pennington County treasurer, Pennington County equalization, register of deeds, Black Hills Energy, and Pennington, and I said it again, register of deeds, okay. All requested and required corrections have been made. R4 zoning will allow development of condominiums, townhomes, and multiple unit dwellings. This subdivision will not be governed by the restrictions and covenants governing the Bull Run subdivision to the north. This is a separate subdivision that will not necessarily be developed for affordable housing. The developer of Bull Run subdivision is involved in the development of this lot for the owner, Doug Fluke, and both would like the name of the subdivision to be similar for marketing purposes, hence Bull Run subdivision 2. Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed this final plat and recommends their approval to City Council.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up to any comment from the public in attendance. Seeing none, is there anyone on the phone that would like to speak to this? Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead then and close public comment and open it up to council discussion. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Minor, you have the floor.
I just wanted to say that I received a message from Mr. Fluke that thanking Ms. Shea for her help with this project and how good the city has been to work with. So I wanted that put on the record.
Thank you very much, Alderman Minor. Any other discussion from council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve, Alderman Johnson, seconded Alderman Jarvis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Jim Peterson,
Yep.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, motion carries. Action item 7C, approval of 2020-2021 retail on and off sale malt beverage in South Dakota wine renewals. So we have several of them on here. Historically, how we've done this is we've read it and then one alderman has made the motion And another alderman has seconded it, and that would be the same alderman and second that we received to go through the process quicker. Stacia, is there anything on these that we are missing, or should that motion be contingent on anything?
Some of the property taxes is not showing up saying paid, but I have confirmation from the actual owners that they have paid them. But due to COVID-19, it has been delayed in the system with the county, and the county has verified that. But they just are not posting to the records proving, so I have a printout that shows yes, it's been paid. It's just sitting down there. They're taking up to about 2 weeks to process some of the payments.
Are you verified it through voice?
Through voice, yes. So otherwise, everything else is taken care of.
Okay, so no restrictions. We have voice verification that the taxes have been paid. So looking at the licenses, A, Alpine Inn, 133 Main Street. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Alderman Johnson, second Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yep.
Steve Jarvis,
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Black Hills Central Railroad Company, 222 Railroad Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Johnson, motion, Alderman Peterson, second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
John Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Jarvis,
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
All in favor? Action item C, Bumpin' Buffalo Bar and Grill, 245 Main Street.
So moved.
Alderman Johnson,
Second.
second Alderman Peterson. Roll call. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Steve Jarvis,
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson.
All in favor. Broken Arrow Trading, 249 Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Johnson, Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson. Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
All approved. And the last one, Turtletown, 205 Main Street.
So moved.
Alderman Johnson,
Second.
Alderman Peterson, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yep.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yep.
All in favor, motion carried. Action item 7D, 2020 budget review for COVID-19.
Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Minor, you have the floor.
I would like to make a motion to table this action item at this time, so staff can work on the information and present it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Motion Alderman Minor to table, second Alderman Johnson. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
John Johnson. Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
Yeah.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on into discussion items, we've already covered topics A and B. Discussion item 8C, Hill City Chamber Report. Janet.
Good evening, everyone. This is Janet. I hope you can hear me all right. Just want to really point out a few things. We still continue to monitor and observe the impact as it moves through the state and possibly then into our community, as you heard earlier from Dr. Brown, Drs. Brown and Dr. Graber tonight. That is our first and foremost concern in providing resources and support to our businesses. So the good news that I want to share with you, one of the ways that we are supporting folks right now is to match employers with potential employees. So if all of you or any of you know of either businesses who are in need of support going forward into the season, we would love to get those names from you. Or if you have a need, if you are a business and have a need, please let us know. We did match up about 4 different businesses today with some folks that came to our attention. So that is one service that we are able to provide. Another thing that we are doing, again, is preparing for the safe reopening at the VIC, just as you saw in my report. We have put together an extensive plan. I've had it reviewed by our board president. I've also had it reviewed by our insurance company, found to be very detailed and thorough, and as a matter of fact, some folks that, including the insurance company, thought that the ideas were good and they may adopt some of them for their lobby. But I do want to, as is first and foremost of our concern, we want to make sure that we protect our employees, our staff, our community. So that is of paramount importance. Another bit of good news that I would like to share with you, the municipal sales tax collected, the reports from the South Dakota Department of Tourism for Hill City. They have been on the positive side for the last 4 months, 8.9% up from the previous period last year for January, 1.6% up in February. We were up 7.12% in March. And again, these are all numbers that are going to be lagging behind. But for April, the report turned in 14.33% up. So we expect that May is going to look a little bit softer than that, but that is definitely a good trend that we like to see. And our calls right now, the people that are calling into the Visitor Information Center are first and foremost concerned with safety and also wanting to know what will be available for them in Hill City when they arrive. So the most important thing that we can do is provide them with resources as well as we do with our businesses and give them the links to the South Dakota Tourism website, to our website, our visitor website. We answer specific questions. We also give them the Black Hills Badlands website for information. So everything that is current, updated, open, or temporarily closed. And that also includes events going forward for the future. We monitor events and information on a daily basis, and the updates are made daily as well. So that's pretty much the long and the short of it as we consider how we can best serve our customers and visitors as they consider their travel to the state. And we are hearing that people, if they are not able to come or if they do not feel comfortable coming into our area right now, we are encouraging them to consider a time later that works well for them. And a lot of people are telling us that they are now moving into that July, August, and September timeframe. So that's pretty much what I have for you. Do you have any questions for me that you can think of?
Council, any questions? No. So thank you very much, Janet. As always, you're doing a wonderful job.
Thanks, Mayor Kathy. I do have one other quick thing I did want to tell everyone. The future of marketing right now with the pandemic is local. It has to do with us all being connected, but overwhelming people with information about what is good, what delights them, choosing the right areas of the right channels for communication. That is extremely important. That was said today in a marketing expert who his name is Seth Godin. So I just wanted to pass that on, and that's exactly what we're focusing on, our local market. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to discussion item 8D, Hill City Main Street tables and trash cans. So before I turn it over to Brett, he will give you a little bit of background on where this came up. I know that we had a resident that spoke today during the 3-minute time frame and had indicated that she had some concerns relative to the safety and the hand railing and some activity that she's seen. We have been having multiple conversations at the city level in anticipating it, so that's not something that isn't on our minds. And this conversation may actually lead into another work item that we're potentially looking at to address some of those concerns. So Brett, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know at our last meeting we've talked about our budget. We have, I think it's like $12,000 set aside for trash can purchasing, and that's on hold, but I think we can still move forward with the idea of what are we looking at as far as the design of trash cans, location, the quantity of them, those kinds of things, but not putting together or placing an order for that, so we can be prepared for that day that we are. I think another discussion that comes into play is the discussion of benches. You know, there has been traditionally a few businesses that have put their own benches out, and there's been some concern of that because their benches are located in areas which may make it a little bit difficult to maintain the ADA access requirement that the state has upon that sidewalk. And so the other idea is that if we have a bench, we should have a uniform bench that goes through the whole block so that it's consistently, the looks are consistent, the placement's consistent, that it works for everybody involved. And so we're going to be looking at that and the costs associated to it, the placement of it, whatnot. I was approached, and I have been approached a couple of times out in the field when I was down on the sidewalk project, of that, particularly that bump out area. That's where that ramp and that set of stairs is in the mid block. We actually, to make that bump out, we gained a lot of real estate on that upper sidewalk. And so there's been an email request and a verbal conversation requesting that we put maybe in that area some tables and chairs, and they'd have to be fairly small, but there might be an opportunity to put like 3 or 4 small tables, a couple of chairs per table. Now, the conversation that I had was saying, look, it would be open for anybody to sit down and utilize it and have an ice cream cone or a soft drink or something like that. Obviously, once we start talking about people sitting outside, we think of, it kind of gravitates towards the question of saying, well, the businesses that are right next to that area are both serving alcoholic beverages. So that, as we have it currently within our ordinances and the license that have been adopted for those businesses, would not be permissible to have people sitting out on the sidewalk like that having a drink. Now, there is a provision in state law that we have not adopted as a city that allows a license to be extended into a sidewalk area so that people can sit and have an alcoholic beverage and whatnot. So there's kind of a progression that could take place here of going from, you know, a brand new sidewalk with no seating to one with seating, and then now it could extend out to maybe alcoholic beverages being allowed within the sidewalk area. Again, that's kind of problematic in certain areas because we've got that wider sidewalk in the mid-block, but we don't have a real wide area in other locations of that sidewalk to allow for tables and whatnot. So there's a lot to think and discuss and to look at as we move forward. So I'm bringing that information to you that there is some interest, at least at the base level, of putting in tables and chairs. There will probably be an evolution of that if that were to be allowed into the alcohol question. But I think fundamentally where I'm coming from is I want to make sure that we have a uniform solution to this as far as the trash can and benches, and if we add tables, if that's appropriate. The only couple of downsides is to the table part of it is it is kind of going to look like it's business specific. It's going to be in front of those 2 businesses that are by the ramp and stairs mid-block. The other issue is that when we designed the sidewalk, we designed it so that it follows, and it kind of, if you walked it, it kind of gently slopes and it meets everybody's front doorstep. So the one challenge is that there's never a perfectly level spot going this way. And so it might be a little bit off kilter with some tables or whatnot in that same area. So we need to look at those kinds of things. So I'm here to have that conversation, see if you have any questions for me or comments or any specific direction that you would like to offer.
I thought originally the state they changed that, years ago you couldn't have trash cans, benches, flower pots, or anything else on the right of way. I think remember years ago the city made a resolution to go ahead and do it.
Well, you're right. There's a provision in the maintenance agreement that we have with the state that says they don't want shrubberies, they don't want things creating obstacles on Main Street on that sidewalk because they want to maintain that ADA access. Obviously, we've had trash cans for years and we had streetlights for years on that lower sidewalk, but that was all ADA out of compliance because there was no way for people to get around the light or the trash can. There just was about this much space. And so that's why we moved the lights to the upper sidewalk onto the edge. So I think there's some reasonableness to that requirement of the state. I think they understand and recognize that we need some trash cans there just because of the number of people that come and visit us and eating their ice cream or having their fudge or soft drink or something like that. I think we can put some trash cans back in there that are kind of minimalistic, that don't impact too much. I mean, the awnings that are preserved there with their support posts, most of them stick out from that railing probably about a foot. And so we've got an opportunity if we put things along the railing to not disrupt the flow. Where we get into trouble is if we're putting anything up against the building, I think. So I think the state would be fine with us putting the trash cans and whatnot. And that was, when we had the sidewalk committee meetings several years ago, that was the direction, because it came up then.
Seem to remember them saying, well, basically they'll turn a blind eye to it and the city can do what they want, but if there ever was a lawsuit, that they were out of the lawsuit because we didn't follow the rules.
And that's why we need to look at the type of trash cans that we get and the type of benches that we're looking at. I think instead of, right now we've got the full-size circle barrels that take up about this much space. So we're talking about they're probably at least 24 inches wide. I think maybe if we go to like a half circle and put that flat half up against the railing or even hang it from the railing at the where they have the vertical support, you've got kind of that rounded edge facing towards the pedestrians walking, and you're only going to impact it by a foot, which would line up with the awnings and the street lights anyway. So we know from the edge of the street light to the front facade of the buildings that we've got adequate ADA access. And so there's kind of a little natural area now that we can kind of develop with the benches and the trash cans. Maybe we built the trash cans kind of into the benches. I mean, that's something that we need to look at. Maybe it's a one-piece deal. But I think it makes sense to have it uniform, consistent, accessible, that it's a unified look for that block and the next block.
So can I turn it to the audience now? We have somebody who'd like to speak, council?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask Brett if you're talking about being uniform, you're talking about sidewalk all the way from the Best Western to Dollar General, benches and equal numbers and that sort of thing from one end of town to the other.
You're right. So when we did an inventory of all of our trash cans that we have throughout the city, I think we have about like 50 trash cans. And so the whole idea is that we would replace all of the trash cans throughout the main corridor and the parks and wherever we've got them. The benches, primarily the focus is the mid block, but there's an opportunity to extend it out. It's really going to be the idea and the vision is going to be tempered by the dollar amounts that are available. So I think expanding it out further than just this one block is a natural progression of it. And again, that's what the design, when we get the design and the recommendation, that will flesh out at that time.
Yep.
So.
And although we've talked about potentially not having the funds that were budgeted from a council perspective, I know that the EDC has taken up the garbage cans, and they have a meeting this week. I spoke with Bob Lowry, the president, last week about this, and had mentioned, maybe we look at a combined bench garbage can project and get it to a point where it's ready. So all we need to do is then purchase it whenever the funds can be acquired, because there is interest that some funds could come other than city funds. And he thought that was an intriguing idea and wants to talk to the EDC about it as something maybe they'd look at as well. So it might not necessarily be all city funds that we're looking at here. And again, we're kind of premature from a spending perspective, because we're not sure budget-wise what's gonna happen to us this year. But it would be nice if we got whoever together to look at it, come up with some kind of design, something that would work, something that we could be consistent. And then all we would need to do is when it did come time for us to do that, we'd just go out and acquire the material to do that. Any other thoughts from council? Alderman Minor, anything?
Yes, Mayor.
Jim, go ahead.
If you're going to have somebody, or a committee looking at this, I would suggest you have our Public Works Director on it. Too often we think of all these things and don't consider how the trash bags are gonna get removed. Speaking from experience, I know at least half of them leak. And so when you pull them out of the receptacle and it leaks all over, when the cans were on the lower level, at least it was in the street, it was leaking.
Yeah.
If you're gonna put them up on the upper level and then behind the railing somewhere, now we've got a leaking bag, we're gonna have to tote all the way down the end or somehow throw over the railing.
Yep.
So I would urge you to think about that very carefully, because it happens and you're just gonna create a mess for Public Works.
Exactly, Alderman Minor, and thank you for bringing that up. We did discuss that as well. It has to be functional, so it can't be just look pretty, but we have to be able to get the trash in and out. You know, it's really nice to look at a nice stone garbage can, but if you can't lift it or you can't get the trash out of it, it's really not that functional. So thank you for that, and that is the overall plan. You know, once we determine that there would be somebody to be able to take the lead and do this, or a committee, or however we do it, then there does have to be city input specifically from Public Works for that. Anybody else? Okay, did you need anything of the council today?
I guess my only other lingering question is the thoughts or ideas about tables and chairs in that little extended area by the ramp, that upper sidewalk that got widened out. It probably got widened out about at least 20 inches or so. And then also the idea, again, it's not on our books right now, we would have to adopt an ordinance to allow people to serve alcohol within the sidewalk public right-of-way areas. So if there's any comments on those two things.
So it'll just be in that area for alcohol, or anybody that sells alcohol?
Now, that's the challenge of saying, if you adopted an ordinance, it would be a generic ordinance that says, we adopt the state's parameters of allowing such a thing to occur, and then each restaurant that would like to do that would have to come to us separately and go through the process of an approval. And so it would be added onto their existing permit. And there would have to be another set of guidelines or restrictions of how they operate that. The other challenge is, again, the width of the sidewalk. You know, who's got enough space to physically pull that off without disrupting the whole point of the sidewalk being ADA compliant?
Does that ordinance say that you can walk up and down Main Street with a drink in your hand?
No, the ordinance allows for licensed operators to serve in a designated area of sidewalk in front of their own business, and it can only be consumed there.
So it would be kind of selective then.
So if two of them together, can you walk from one to the other one?
The way I understand liquor laws, the answer is no.
So who would know?
So my recommendation would be just to work on the benches and then treat the alcohol thing as a separate deal downstream. I think that's a huge can of worms that nobody can police, and it's just gonna be, you know, whatever. But I would be more, you know, the bench idea, I think it's nice to have people be able to sit and just relax a little bit.
I thought that's
So
what
I'm
part of
not-
the sidewalk was made for, so you could sit below the handrail.
This is the lower level, we're talking about up on the
So
top.
any bench, I would be, for me, you know, whether it comes up while we're still here, is benches, you know, even back-to-back benches where you could consolidate space rather
That's
than
what we were
tables.
talking about.
Because I think you're gonna just get into a real pissing match with
Big time.
business specific.
Right.
Big time.
And not to, you know, whatever. But I think there's more of a need for, you know, just people to be able to sit down. I mean, we put benches out at the corner where we used to be, and people use them all the time, along the side and out front.
And to kind of piggyback onto what Alderman Peterson was saying, you know, so we did have somebody say, oh, the kids are just hanging off of and it's gonna be a danger. Well, if we start to incorporate garbage cans and benches and things like that, we're gonna eliminate the open areas for that to happen. So, you know, that's why I think bringing that up is important to hear from the community, and we've got things that we've kind of been throwing around to try to minimize some of that wherever we can, so.
Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Minor?
I agree with Alderman Peterson. I'm not in favor of an open container out in front. That's just a can of worms. I also am not in favor of tables and chairs, because what will happen is somebody will pull all the chairs over to one table because they have a big group and then block the sidewalk. Who's going to clean the table and chairs when somebody spills something? You're expecting Public Works to come out there and clean them. I see that as just a can of worms, but I do agree that a nice bench would be appropriate where somebody could sit and rest or wait for others while they're shopping.
Okay.
I think it's unique the way we have benches and people just sit there and eat ice cream, and it's kind of unique to our town.
Okay.
As far as garbage cans, I don't know if this would be realistic, but it just occurred to me that, you know, the whole mess issue will be, you know, maybe they can be somewhat hung on that rail and then emptied from the bottom on the bottom side. I don't know if that's realistic.
Well, they make canisters that roll, that you could probably roll, as long as you got there early enough in the morning before the crowd started coming, and roll down through there and throw bags in. And
Yeah, there might be a wheeled cart or something
Right.
that
Yeah,
we,
something that-
I mean,
we
we
take
take
on
on
the
the sidewalk that we
Or
can.
take with you and then load up.
Sure.
But anyway, just,
Yeah.
that'd be space saving too. I don't know if it's realistic, but it's.
No, we had actually talked about maybe the design that we can hang from the railing from those supports where it's got the vertical support, and maybe it doesn't even touch the ground, you know, so you can still push snow and whatnot, that it visually would just be kind of hanging there, and maybe they're smaller, so that you're not getting so much trash at one time, but that, you know.
But more of them?
Yeah, but more of
to
them,
accommodate
who
for
knows,
the
I mean,
size.
there's a lot of different options.
Just up there, yeah.
But I agree with Alderman Minor about the maintenance part of it, of saying, look, we've got to be able to access it easily. You know, if there's a plastic sleeve on the inside where we stretch the bag around, we've got to be able to access that easily and pull it out and replace it. We've got to make sure that it's not blowing, the whole unit's not blowing down the block, or the lid's not flying off in the wind, or the rain's filling up the trash can with water as it rains. So there's a few things to consider, and we definitely don't want to slop, you know, liquid all over the place either, so thank you for the comments.
Okay, that's all we have on that. Let's move into discussion item 8E, Hills City Public Work Director's Report. Travis, are you on the phone? I don't think he is, because we've got a caller that wasn't identified. Okay, so with everything that he's got going on, Travis did not come to the meeting, but included his monthly report for March and April, as he was not able to get it in. So that is there for the council's ability to peruse, and if you have any questions, you can either.
I got a question right now.
Sure.
So February, estimated water, just in the way they're doing this, estimated water gallons used was what, you know, that number, 1.2. Actual water billed was higher, 1.3 something. What am I missing? Estimated water gallons used, billed. I would have suspected that number would have been reversed and one would have been higher.
Yeah, March looks like it's the same one.
So I'm not sure what that means to me.
Okay.
And then water on February 2020, the sewer. So sewer is based on the water that comes through your meter, and that's how the sewer is billed, whether it goes to the sewer plant or not. Is 1.305, yet water was billed was 1.1360. So I see some discrepancies in numbers there. Maybe they're not, but I don't get it.
maybe they need to be reversed, I'm not sure.
The whole thing between the water and the sewer portion of it, it depends on what's happening. If there's a leak that's underneath the house or something like that, we will credit them back the sewer portion of it because it did not run through it, yeah.
So that's likely credits in?
Yes.
Okay, that would.
Between the two of those that are actually billed in sewer. Now, I don't know the difference between what they're reading up there to what we're reading, depending on what days or what time periods, could also be a possibility of a factor between those two things.
So what's the estimated water gallons versus the actual water gallons? What does that tell me? On February, like estimated water gallons?
Mayor?
Alderman Minor?
I think I could answer the question. I don't mean to butt in and interrupt the finance officer, though.
Nope, that's fine.
You're going to have some differences between gallons billed water and gallons billed sewer, also because of there's a number of homes that are on septic tanks.
Yes.
So they have water service but not sewer service.
Okay.
That usually amounts to, I believe there's 20 or 30 homes somewhere in there that are on septics. The estimated water gallons, as I understand it from staff, when they first take the meter readings and download all the data, then we have some meters that are hand-read, and then they have to add in and make corrections and changes. So that's why you get a difference from the first estimated water usage to what actually gets billed out, because of the internal things, the meters that are hand read that they have to add back in and things like that. So
That differential.
that's the best I can explain.
Yeah, thank you for that. That differential is 100,000 gallons, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, I know that Public Works reads and provides numbers. So
Yeah, anyway.
it's not all done with a handheld device.
So what we can do then is when we receive his next report and he has a water report, we will ask that he be here or on phone to explain some of those differences or what the process is. Thank you very much, Alderman Minor. Okay, so let's move on into report items. Let's go to Common Council. Alderman Jarvis.
I've received some information today that's kind of disturbing to me, and I'm gonna ask for it to be a discussion item next meeting. If you're out of the state and you come back in, you're not welcome at a public meeting, basically, until you've been quarantined for 14 days. So I think we need to discuss that, because I don't want anyone coming in from out of state to think that they're not welcome in Hill City, South Dakota. Thank you.
Okay, Stacia, would you please make sure that we have that as a discussion item? Okay, anything else, Alderman Jarvis?
No, that's it.
Okay, Alderman Peterson?
Nope.
Alderman Minor?
Nope.
Alderman Johnson?
Nope, nope.
Nothing, okay. I will make quick, so, at the P&Z meeting that we had, you had seen the final plat and approved it, so that was discussed, and there was also a carport that was approved on Spruce Street. I was contacted by Father Mark from St. Rose Lima Catholic Church, and they would like to begin utilizing Memorial Park for outdoor mass services. They'd like to have a evening service on Saturday at 6 p.m. that would be in Spanish, and then a morning mass on Sunday at 10 a.m. that would be in English, weather permitting. So we've worked with Father Mark on that, and he's setting all that up. I know that, and he has told us that they work closely together, so the rest of the churches do. So we don't know if there'll be any additional interest in doing this with any of the other parishes or any of the other churches, but we welcome that. It would be a good idea. It's nice to see some of our city property start to get used and not sit there as it has in the past. On the heels of that, I've been taking a look at Betty Matkins Memorial Field, which is one of those things that we have in Hill City, but doesn't seem like it's been utilized in quite a while. I do understand that there was a grant that was used that was specific to that being a ball field, so that's why it is a ball field. However, I think there's a real possibility that for $0 or minimal dollars, we would be able to fix some fences, put in a gate, and potentially turn it into a dog park. So a canine recreation area that has the home of Betty Matkins Memorial Field. So I'm taking that upon myself personally to see what I can do, to see what it would bring, and I've also already received some people calling me that would like to know if I'd accept volunteers. So I think there's going to be an interest in it. I think it's something that we need. Our town is recognized as a dog-friendly community for visitors, and this would give them a place that they could actually go. So some logistics need to be worked out, but again, something we could do to utilize property we have that might just take a few pieces of sweat equity and we can get it moving. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the Sturgis Rally. So we received communication that has come in, and we just got it now, from Sturgis. So they're in the process of talking about rally and making the overall decision on what's going to happen from a Sturgis City perspective. So this does not apply to anything that lies outside the city limits, like the Buffalo Chip or any of those venues that are not within city limits. This would only be city limits, and the purpose of this communication was just to talk through a little bit of what they're going to do in order to prepare and how they're going to make the decision on what's going to happen with Rally. They talk a little bit about the impact that it has, and that 43% of their residents actually rely on what Rally brings. It is a big contributor to their economy. It would be very difficult for businesses that didn't survive, and the expectation is that there would be businesses that would not make it through the season. And in addition, it would take a while to bring them back. They're going to use metrics for consideration, so they're talking about using data, empirical data, and that's data that talks about resource availability in the state for ICU beds, ventilators, the virus case growth, so a percentage change from week to week, and they're looking at how many visitors would be expected from states that we normally see visitors from. So Minnesota, Colorado, Nebraska, states that are relatively close. During the week of May 11th through the 15th, they've set up calls. So they've set up calls with various different organizations and groups. They're going to talk to the governor, the state tourism department, the state health department. Then they're going to have separate calls with the motel groups, with business groups. They're going to talk to mayors and chambers throughout the hills. So I expect we'll be receiving an invitation for a call. They're going to be constantly talking to Monument Health. And they plan on doing this the week of May 11th through 15th, the week of the 18th, the week of the 25th, and then the week of June 1st. So June 15th is their target on having a regular council meeting to vote if the rally is canceled or if they're going to move forward with it. So that's 7.5 weeks before the start of the rally. This year it's a week later than normal, so that's 7.5 weeks before. And they've factored everything in it that they've needed to make the decision. So I wanted to relay that to everyone. I know that everyone is anxious in anticipation of what's going to happen with the rally. Again, this is just from a Sturgis proper perspective. They do not have jurisdiction over some of those other venues. So it's information, and we are keeping in close contact with each other in the Black Hills area as tourist communities and sharing information amongst us. So I'm expecting that we'll have more active information between Custer, Keystone, and Hill City, so we can kind of share our information with each other on what's happening. And I know the chambers are also working directly with each other too. So there's a lot of that interaction that's happening. And then the last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was COVID-19. So as you heard earlier in the meeting, we have been contacted by Monument, and they put together weekly calls to kind of work us through that. I think it's very beneficial because it's very area specific. It'll be information that'll be more relevant to what we're dealing with. Anything that we have published or that we've talked about, and again, it was referenced by Dr. Graver, is information that was given to us or provided by the CDC or the Department of Health. And in the resolution that we passed, we also recommended following those guidelines. So if anyone has any question on something that's being suggested or done, again, as a law is concerned in the city of Hill City, our law is not a requirement. It is recommended that that be followed. So we did not come down as a city and say you have to do this. We're just saying you need to follow this. Now, if the governor comes with something else, her information is going to trump anything that we have on the table. So with that being said, I just wanted to make sure we had a clear understanding, and we do have a path moving forward in the event we start to see some very strange things with this. So with that being said, that's all I had. I'm going to go ahead then and turn it over to Srisha.
As everyone knows, or hopefully have seen, over in front of the Best Western, the light pole, antique light pole, finally got replaced, and we received our insurance claim money back for that, on that accident. Also, I want to say thanks to Betsy. She helped me out last week, getting the West Nile grant in for mosquito repellent for 2021. And I thank her for getting all that documentation in for me. The last thing is here in May, we had to have our 2019 annual report done and sent off to the state by actually today. It got done on Friday, and it was part of your packet. As you can see, we actually overall did relatively well with our general fund in saving money within it, and also staying within our budget. We did have a shortfall regarding our gross receipts fund. So in our bid board, we made some money in there, but it all is going to go to the bid board project. Our water and sewer funds, we had a loss in our water fund this last year due to in 2019. I suppose a lot of that was due to repairs that we did with the leaks impacts that we had there. And then we were on the good side with our sewer sewer fund. This will be published in the paper, so if anyone has any questions, of course you can call and I'll go through that. Bill, I did want to say too, when you and I talked, you asked about the permanently restricted on the water and sewer. That is the customer deposit amount in the water for the 25,000 that was there, and the 300,000. Some of it is customer deposit. The other is an initial CD that was put back, and after doing further research, it is coded wrong in our system from 2012. So I will be making that change so it gets in the right, so it's not permanently restricted, that we actually can use that if we need to, if something happens.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that still in the sewer fund though?
It's still in the sewer fund, yes, but right now, where they have it line item as back in 2012 was in the wrong category, so it's we're gonna take that and move it to the correct one.
Okay. Thank you, Stacia. And moving on to City Administrator, Brett. Quick updates.
Quick updates. Main Street Sidewalk Project. So all concrete pouring work has been completed. The only remaining items to be done for the sidewalk project is to finish the railing on Main Street, which they were working on today. I don't know if they have it completely installed, but I know all the sections are there. The next blocks to the south, between Desperados and the Hubcap Diner, are the next railings that need to go down, and I know they have a couple of pieces of section that's down there. So they'll be installing those railings over the next, I would assume, the next several weeks, because I don't think they have everything fabricated yet. Beyond that, I've been working with Complete Concrete and the DOT on the finalized punch list of things to make sure that items that were written down during the duration of the project are completed. You know, such things as they had to do some cleanup work down by Granite Sports with kind of the rock for Pat's building. There was the caulking that was done on the edge of the sidewalk as it matches up with the buildings with that felt. Most of the punch list items will be with the railing to make sure that it gets straightened out appropriately and that everything aligns and gets painted properly and protected so that we can accept it. And then there's a couple of other street signs that need to go back in. One of them's for the school to warn people that a school's coming up. So we're working on that punch list, but you know, at this point, 95% of the project is done. Sidewalks are fixed. On top of the sidewalk project, at our last meeting, you as council approved the complete concrete price quote to fix the library parking lot. That was conducted over a course of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of last week. Actually Friday too, because they had, Thursday was kind of a rain day. So they saw cut the asphalt parking lot, formed up the curb and gutter, poured the gap of concrete and made it flow so it flows around the building nicely. And so it looks great down there. I don't know if you guys have looked, but it really looks nice now. It looks very professional. We've got some gravel that's on the backside of that curb, but we're gonna put some decorative rock or something in there to kind of finish it up. So the drainage problem where it was kind of sunk in the middle there, it's not gonna pool up. I'm anxious to see how well it flows with a real rainstorm. We kind of tested it with the hose to make sure that it was functioning properly. So that's nice to see. Next on the list, of business improvement project. We know that at the next council meeting, we're gonna revisit the discussion that we had from 2 weeks ago about going back out to bid and seeing where we're at, if there's a comfort level of going out to bids, if we think we're getting a better price quote, if we think that we are gonna see $2 tax revenue come in from the hotel rooms, those kinds of things, and along with Stacey's budget analysis of things as they are in 2 weeks. So that's where that project is. The water reservoir project, I know Kale and I have been in touch with Rural Development as it relates to the project and the plans. Everything has been submitted into them for their review. We have both contacted them. They don't have an answer for us right now of next steps. I know we're in the final steps of their process. They have all the final plans, all the final paperwork that they should have. One thing that is getting accomplished later this week is the railroad crossing will get installed. And so that should happen this week, and I know that the train is scheduled to open up, I think June 1st still. So that will get done along with their work for track maintenance by the same track people that do their work for them. And then the last item is the Major Lake Bridge project. I am still waiting for a letter from the South Dakota Historical Department on an archaeological review of the dam and the impacts of the sewer line and the bridge project. I was supposed to have that by the end of last week, and I was informed by the department head that there's something that happened that it's going to delay it. So I am told I'm supposed to get that letter by the end of this week. That letter is then supposed to satisfy the review requirements of the Forest Service so they can sign off on our special use permit to put the sewer lines on Forest Service property.
If you don't get it, you're gonna escalate it to me.
Yep. So that is in the government queue.
Yep.
So that is all I have.
Okay. All right, no further business, meeting adjourned.